pandemic. I want to move on now to a very important story that we've been wanting to focus on for the last few days, and all of us are seeing it around us. When administrations have failed, governments have just completely failed in their purpose of helping out citizens, when the systems seem to have collapsed, the silver lining, I would say, are groups of ordinary citizens, Aam Aadmi and Aam Mahilaएं, who have come forward to fill in those gaps to the best extent possible. They're reaching out and helping complete strangers. They're making sure that food goes to COVID patients in isolation. They're helping out with oxygen cylinders. They're helping out with real-time information on where beds are available, where you can find plasma donors, anything and everything that's needed. These are groups of citizens and citizen groups which have sprung up in the last few days itself. And what's very interesting to note is the role that social media is playing in the middle of all of this. Very often, social media sometimes has a divisive role in our society. It polarizes people into camps. It sees the spewing of venom and hatred. But this one time, social media has been the fabric keeping people together and giving succor to those in times of need. Today on the show, we're featuring some people who have been working relentlessly to bring aid to many of those in need. There are, of course, many more out there, but this is an ode to those to understand how they're working and how they can bring help. So I have with me today Naimisha, who's a volunteer with India Cares. Shweta Das is joining us on the show today. She's an independent journalist and works with COVID Citizen Action Group. Kevin Lee is the editorial lead at Yuva, and I'm also speaking with Ankit Gupta, a writer who tweets from the handle of Kisse Kahaniyan. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for speaking with us on the show today. Shweta, let me begin by just getting your perspective on what you have been doing, what your volunteers group has been doing, and how you all have organized yourselves in the last few days as the pandemic and the extent of helplessness of citizens has hit.
I think at this point, more than the fact of any group coming together and trying to do something, at this point, really the question is everybody with access to a social media account is trying to respond to SOS requests on Twitter. Everybody is, and it's really not limited to any group. In fact, every single friend of mine who I know has a Twitter account is responding to SOS requests while also attending to medical emergencies in their own households. So that's one thing. But as what I have been doing is basically trying my best to help patient families reduce this helter-skelter from one hospital to another and verify where exactly can they at least hope to find some kind of medical assistance during these times.
Yeah. Naimisha, tell us about India Cares. This is a group of nearly 4,000 volunteers. Is the purpose to really connect families that require aid with those that can provide them? And how difficult is the whole process of really going through that, information overload that comes if you put out a WhatsApp for help, or if you put out a tweet, or even if you put out a Facebook post, and then you have an information overload which comes. Someone has to do the job of sifting through it and seeing which leads are real, which are not. Is that what you also help out with?
So basically, we have been functioning since last year itself. In that case, we are already having a group of all database already with us about plasma, blood, and hospitalization. So we are quite used to it by now because we have been doing it since last year. So this year, what we meet is one step ahead because it's a very extraordinary time and everything has been more jumbled up. Last time we had request of ration and food, and this time the requests are way different. There is ICU, there is ventilator, there is remdesivir, and it's quite very huge in number and something we get really confused with. So how we proceed is we made subgroups of all divisions, like having a plasma group, having blood group, having hospitalization group, having all the subgroups. And we have, kind of fragmented the entire 4,000 volunteers into various groups. So we also have our database, which is yes, it is verified. All the things that we get through, we do not merely pick it up from Twitter, because at this point you would find a lot of things that is going around with, free oxygen cylinder and everything, which half of them are fake, and that rather jeopardizes the condition of the patient at that point. So we also make it an India Care verification. Our volunteers get in touch with the person who is doing it. They get in touch, they confirm it, and once the lead is confirmed, that is when we try connecting the lead with the patient or the attendant of the patient who is in necessity of that.
Okay. Kevin, give us a sense of how you reach out to people who are not savvy on social media. I've often wondered this over the last few days when you see people amplifying messages for care and for help, and that is fantastic. But we also have to understand that the proportion of Indians who are on social media or savvy on social media is very, very few. So how do volunteer groups make sure that they reach out to those who don't have this access?
No, I think it's a very important question, Tamanna. Not all of us are privileged enough to have social media handles. What we've done with the Yuva Volunteers program is we have about 750 people all over the country. And the way that we've divided work also is based on geographical location. So we have a dedicated group of volunteers who's looking into the rest of India section, which is outside, the main metros where a lot of these social media requests are coming from. Luckily enough for us, even if somebody doesn't have social media, over the last few weeks, people have realized that social media is helping a lot of people. So they have friends, family members, loved ones who will reach out on Twitter, even if the patient themselves or the immediate relative of the patient is not on social media. So right now, in that sense, social media is at the forefront of the efforts. We are lucky enough to be in a country where I think people are realizing that social media is kind of doing this at this time. So luckily enough, that has not affected the networks. But while I say that, what we also have to understand is that while social media can help in bridging the gap, social media cannot increase the supply of resources, and that's something that we've been facing over the last few weeks, where we can connect people with resources that exist, even if they are running out quickly. But the need of the hour really is more resources.
Absolutely. Ankit Gupta, what is the success rate in the sense that, especially in the NCR region right now where resources are so strained, how do you manage to make sure that there is some help reaching? And what is the whole experience like at the end of the day when there are people that you cannot really help?
So basically, it's like कि I cannot tell you about particularly कि success rate कितना है या फिर कितना नहीं है, because I believe जैसा केविन ने कहा कि resources social media से नहीं मिल सकते हमको, और अभी ये सिचुएशन आ गई है कि हम ये बिलीव करने पे आ गए हैं कि सोशल मीडिया हमको इस परेशानी से निकालेगा। बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग हैं जो सोशल मीडिया तक नहीं पहुंच पाते, उनके लिए तो डबल चुनौती हो जाती है कि सबसे पहले वो किसी ऐसे आदमी तक पहुंचे या किसी ऐसे शख्स के पास जो ट्विटर या फेसबुक जैसी चीजें यूज कर रहा हो, फिर उसकी बात को एम्पलीफाई किया जाएगा और उसके बाद वो हम तक पहुंचेगी। तो कई बार ऐसा होता है कि कुछ लोगों के हम तक रिक्वेस्ट आती है लेकिन हम उसको फुलफिल नहीं कर पाते हैं, और कुछ लोगों की हम पूरी कोशिश करते हैं करने की और हम कामयाब भी होते हैं। बट इसका सक्सेस रेट कहना एक उसमें अंदाजा लगाना मुश्किल है, बट ये बहुत ही ज्यादा कुछ मेरी नजर में बहुत ज्यादा हेल्प नहीं कर रहा है। ये बस इतना है कि लोगों की सफरिंग कम कर रहा है। इसमें गवर्नमेंट को एक आना पड़ेगा जिसमें ना ये सोशल मीडिया या फिर एप्स वगैरह से निकल के हमको ऑन ग्राउंड कुछ सिचुएशंस को चेंज करना पड़ेगा, वो गवर्नमेंट कर सकती है।
नहीं, वो आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है अंकित. You're right. I mean, volunteer groups cannot do the job of government and administration. I'm just highlighting how you're stepping up to at least give some hope. When I say success rate, मेरे कहने का मतलब है कि कितना मुश्किल हो गया है इस वक्त ऑक्सीजन को लाना या किसी तक ऑक्सीजन पहुंचाना या हॉस्पिटल में एडमिशन करवाना इस वक्त कितना मुश्किल हो गया है. और जब आप नहीं हेल्प कर पाते हैं तो आप क्या कहते हैं उन परिवारों को?
पिछले 3 दिनों की अगर बात करूं तो बहुत ज्यादा मुश्किल हो गया है. दिल्ली एनसीआर में मुश्किल से हमें 3 दिनों में सिर्फ 3 या 4 आईसीयू बेड्स या फिर ऑक्सीजन की लीड्स मिली वेरीफाइड. तो अभी तक, और जिनकी मदद हम नहीं कर पाते, ये हमारे लिए सबसे मुश्किल यही रहता है कि अब हम उनको क्या बोले. हमको सिर्फ सॉरी बोलना पड़ता है कि हमने कोशिश करी लेकिन हम नहीं कर पाए. सो दिस इज अभी पिछले कुछ 2-3 दिनों में तो सारे रिसोर्सेज ऐसा लग रहा है कि खत्म हो चुके हैं। कुछ भी नहीं दिल्ली एनसीआर रीजन में पूरा बचा हुआ है।
Shweta, what is the kind of resources that volunteer groups are depending on? Is there any kind of liaison or connection with government administrations? Who are you talking to make sure that help reaches? Or is this a process of merely verifying and sifting out which are the official leads or which are actually useful leads and which are not really existent anymore?
So we generally rely on the contact details which are available and provided by the government itself. So for instance, in Delhi, we do rely on the Delhi Corona app and try and contact the hospitals from the app. We also try and reach out to the nodal officers through the available numbers. We try and call the helplines, the war rooms, the control rooms. But one of the most tragic things that we have observed in Delhi especially is that a lot of these phone calls do tend to go unanswered. And that's really so tragic because when a patient is going through a very critical condition and the family has desperately reached out to some stranger on the internet, and you're just trying to find somebody who will answer the call on the other end and tell you where they can go. So it's a lot of helter-skelter and it's really scattered all over the place. It's an outcome of not having a consolidated, real-time, updated source of information. And that's something only the government can do, individuals and volunteers, despite our bestest intentions. And in fact, despite our experience of doing this even last year, we are not equipped to do this. Amplification on social media and verification through volunteers is definitely not going to substitute for public health and governance in these critical times.
Oh, absolutely, and there is no suggestion that it can substitute. I would put it this way: it's the only silver lining really in these dark times that ordinary Indians are coming together and feeling so much to ease others' suffering. It definitely cannot be a substitute. If a Gurdwara opens a langar for oxygen, it will give people some temporary reprieve. It cannot supplant the need for critical care in a hospital. But Kevin, I want to take that question from you. How are groups making sure that they can connect the right dots? Because a lot of this is about connection. Are you now getting in touch with official authorities, with administration, with government, and what have these interventions with government organizations been like?
To be very honest, so far there has not kind of been a large-scale intervention from the central government. We had a meeting today, in fact, with UNICEF, and from what UNICEF is saying, there could be a consultation with the government sometime early next week, and that's when we'll kind of hopefully see the government step up its efforts and combine its efforts with what groups are doing on social media, like all of the people on this panel are doing. But as of now, to be very frank about it, initially as volunteers, the first piece of information we got from the government was not very welcoming because there were a lot of reports of the government clamping down on groups, on volunteer groups, saying let the central government do its job. You don't kind of need to step in. There were we've had people who we know who had apps for COVID relief that have been taken down. And I understand the government's purpose also. I'll step in to say that the government wants to stop black marketeering. There are a lot of people who are trying to make a financial gains even at this time, who are selling oxygen at elevated prices, who are selling medicine at elevated prices. So the government needed to make sure that people are not amplifying the efforts of black marketers, which I completely understand. But there has not been one big outreach from the government to volunteer groups to say that, listen, we support what you're doing and let us help you. And I think that would solve a lot of our problems if we got information straight from the government itself. I'm not just talking about the central government, even state governments, even local governments kind of need to recognize that this is where people are flocking to. And since they're late to the party, so to speak, they should, in my opinion, combine with the efforts of all of the great people on this panel, all of the work that they're doing to make sure that we can just help people faster. But so far, nothing on that front.
Yeah, great people on this panel and many more who are working. This is the effort of so many who are coming together. You know, the other big question is that why has in all of this time a system not been put in place where you can connect those who have some help to provide and those who need it in a more organized fashion. Right now it's haphazard. Someone puts out a tweet or a post or a WhatsApp message, it gets amplified. No one knows if that need has now been fulfilled or not fulfilled. There are leads which go nowhere. Nimisha, what is the biggest challenge in making sure that time is not wasted, making sure that, you know, and ensuring that the right help reaches the right person?
Basically, the first thing is, as you know, that the very idea, India Care, the team is led by civil servant itself. The one who are coming, like all of the people out here are civil servants themselves, the one who are leading it. In that case, one thing we always do is that we always keep a backup of verified leads where we know if the patient is critical. Like yesterday, we had a case where the patient had the lady was of 60-year-old and her oxygen level was 23 or 24. In that case, it is a very blunt truth that we know taking her in an ambulance to any of the nearby states like Chandigarh or Jaipur won't make it. You never know that if she would survive or not. In that case, you can't even leave that patient there on the space by saying that, okay, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. Because, you know, as you're volunteering, one thing what India Care has always taught us and what we believe in India Care, even till the end, you cannot give up. You have to try. You know, if even if there is a time waste, even if you know that this may not last anywhere, you know the patient may not survive, you can't give it up. You can't give it up till the end. You have to just go on. We do have a verified, kind of leads. Till the end, we keep on trying with all the single leads who are available. I remember yesterday we sent it to the AIIMS Trauma Center because this is very, very known that trauma centers are the one, they may not even admit the patient, but they would actually treat the patient for some time or other. And in between that, you can just jump in and try to find out any other lead or any other hospital that can connect with. Also, the same point of time, we have been in touch with various authorities who have been dealing with. We have been in touch with the DSOs and the nodal officers and the other people who are dealing with it. And they have been equally trying hard. Of course, there have been flaws. There have been ups and downs. But understanding that these are extraordinary times, everyone is equally trying their level best. That's all how we are trying to survive the patient and how we are trying to, till the end, pull it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. These are extraordinary times and people at all levels are trying their best. But the tough questions need to be asked about why have we come to this situation where people are lining up for oxygen cylinders. You're hearing of people passing away in parking lots waiting for an admission to a hospital. It is a complete governance failure. There's no two ways about it. And then you have groups of citizens who are coming in and trying to give the little aid that they can. The fact is, this is the job of governments that they are failing to do. But I want to thank all of you for taking out the time and speaking with us. We thought it's important to highlight the efforts of people who are doing this. And if you are volunteering, please continue to do so. You don't know if that one phone call may help save someone's life in these tough times. Thank you so much.